To everyone. I'm going to start, or Lauren's going to start recording. So this is recorded. They did want us to remind you to keep your microphone muted to like minimize the background noise because the recording will be available um, later, and so they wanted to make sure that. We also wanted to just say that we're told to treat this as like a webinar where we're just talking today. Um, we won't we didn't have time for the follow-up questions in the Zoom format. So there should be a link in the chat for a Google form where you can submit questions, and then we will get back to those after the webinar is over. It won't be like a question and answer session at the end. So the essential learning question was given to us, and I think that's something that you're going to see in the second webinar as well. And it's asking the question of how can we leverage data to design and implement high quality instruction that addresses the diverse learning needs of every student. For our presentation and for our theme, we really do implement data tracking, and we recommend that as like a high priority for working with problem behaviors. When you're working with behaviors, sometimes tracking that data is one of the only ways you can see the initial progress. That's because sometimes it can be really slow in the early stages. It rarely stops overnight. More than likely, it will either lessen in duration or frequency, hopefully both, over time, but that can be a slow progress. So to kind of visualize that, starting with that high rates of problem behavior where your student is now, anytime it goes down is good. Any progress is good progress. And the end goal, whatever the end goal is, the low rates, it might take a little while to get there. And when you're working with behavior, it might not feel like you're making a lot of progress, which is why, data collection is good because that's sometimes the only way you can see it, like more tangibly. When it comes to data tracking, we do have a bit.ly link that will be at the end. And we have data sheets, sample data sheets in there along with other resources. Today's schedule, we will be doing this session until 10:40. Then you guys have a 10-minute break and a second session at 10:50. We're going to go over a quick introduction, then we'll get into the presentation. The conclusion will be the link for the resources that we have, and then also some information on the TLC opportunities that are tied to today. So I'm going to introduce Jenna.
I like it that your desk is like lower.
So I'm like, where's the camera?
I can't even see it. You guys are probably staring at my sweatshirt. Okay. Anyway, I'm Jenna from the behavior support team. There's a picture of my family. I like to dive with sharks, and I love my team, the BST. There's 4 of us, and we all work at different schools with a big team. So we're supported by a lot of wonderful people.
Thanks. Okay. So this is me. I'm Katie. I'm one of the behavior specialists for the support team. I do like to run. I think it's good for my mental health. And also running after kids keeps me fit. And then I also have a dog that I love and I'm obsessed with. And then I do also have a picture of my team because I could not do it without all of them. Okay, so to start the meat of the presentation, I wanted to, before we started talking about what to do and how to address behaviors, I think it's really important that when you're working with kids with problem behaviors to try to come from a place of understanding, because especially in the general education environment, or kids that are like highly verbal and have some of those more like complex behaviors, it can really like get under your skin. And I think one of the best ways to combat that is to understand that it is coming from the disability or trauma or environmental factors as like the first step to like working with them. So I figured we'd go and kind of take a minute or so to go over like what, when we see certain like things like communication challenges, what we think that is, and then also like what it could look like that maybe isn't our first thought. So when we think of like disability and communication challenges, we always hear, children with disabilities, especially autism, they may communicate with words. They might not have those words, and that can lead to frustration or withdrawal. But I think what's also important to highlight is that a student could be completely verbal and still have communication issues. And that could also lead to extreme frustration in the school environment. Same thing with sensory. I think that we often think of the basic with children with autism or sensory processing issues. They can be sensitive to noise, lights, crowded spaces, and that causes those anxiety moments or meltdowns that are often portrayed on TV as sensory is kids with autism, and then when it's too loud, they shut down, which is absolutely true for some students, but it's still there's more to it. Sensory needs are more than just loud environments or bright lights. It can also be things like visual processing, so too much on the walls, if the movements in the classroom that kids are just walking around, not that it's something that you need to fix, but it could be something that is a factor. So it could also be the processing in terms of the pace of instruction, or if there's too much language that's given to them verbally or too much language on the paper. It can be multiple things in the classroom. At center time, there's too much going on. And that can lead to that sensory dysregulation um, in more ways than just the lights are too bright. And they're not always apparent. A student could totally look fine, but be overwhelmed and might not be able to even identify why they are feeling that way. Okay. Social skills, again, that is something that, media would say, you know, children with autism, they might isolate themselves or they might have inappropriate social responses, but it can also be more than that. You can have kids that look like they're very social, but still have, social needs, or kids that are not just impacted with autism, and there are also other disability categories that can struggle with social needs. So kids with ADHD, the impulsivity that you see in the classroom can also be in social situations and can hinder their social progress. Embarrassment, kids with that impulsivity issues tend to have stronger reactions to embarrassment. So that can lead to inappropriate and exaggerated responses. Um, if a student has a disability category that makes it hard for them to problem solve, that can tie into social. And then strong reactions to losing or perceived injustices is also a strong, there's a strong correlation between that and kids with ADHD, especially. So it's more than just kids that don't know how to make friends. It could look like a student who's actually very good at making friends, but and you could ask them, what do you say when you want to tell someone hello? And they can do that back and forth with you. But maybe there's an anxiety or something that's hindering them from being able to demonstrate that consistently. Um, you could have students who have had, problem behaviors in the classroom or at recess and lunch, and now are isolated and they don't have that social skills to reestablish friendships. You can have students that are super social and super talkative and get along great with everyone on the playground, but if something did go wrong, they wouldn't know how to deal with it and self-advocate, and you might see those shutdowns. We also have seen, kids that have enough social skills and understanding that for the first couple years of elementary school, when things are just playing with toys and, what's your favorite food and I like your shoes, they can do that kind of stuff. But then when they get to the older grades where social skills get more complex, we see them decline in that ability to keep up. And so other kids are growing socially, and sometimes our kids across the disability categories are having a hard time keeping up with that. We won't talk too much about trauma today because we are more behavior and less mental health. But when it comes to the consults that we're getting across the district and elementary too, we're seeing more kids that are affected by trauma, either in conjunction with a disability or sometimes just trauma and isolation. And we are trying to help them as best we can, but it does get tricky when it is more of a mental health. But I still want to take a second to kind of show, and talk a little bit about that basic so you can understand kind of where the kids are coming from a little bit. The basic is more like we understand that kids with trauma would probably have emotional regulation issues and trust and attachment issues. And that's something that is absolutely true and that we need to work on with the students that are coming to us with hard past or present. But there's also more that we can do and more that we can see that maybe doesn't look, we don't know, everyone doesn't know that that's trauma related. So concentration, memory, and focus is something that has been shown to affect kids' brains that have trauma. So keeping that in mind. And then, the regressive behaviors, kids acting younger than they are. So you might have a fifth grader engaging in maybe toddler-like tantrums. That can be a result of trauma too. And there are ways that we can support it for that concentration, clear instructions, minimizing distractions, extra time. And then, for the regressive behaviors, reassurance, patience, safe space, and predictable environment. We definitely focus on consistency, predictability. Trust and rapport is something that works with just, I think, any kid that's demonstrating behaviors, whether it's trauma or special needs, disability related. But we'll talk more about that. And then for social emotional learning, I think that with kids with trauma, if they're not getting that social emotional model of how to appropriately cope and regulate themselves and conflict resolution, then that's something that they might only have access to that educational aspect at school. We also just, again, we don't focus too much on trauma. Consultation with your school psychologist and school counselors are vital for those cases.
Okay, I have no idea where my face is on this. Okay, but anyway, hi. I think something important to think about, like I know Katie showed you guys the graph at the beginning about or like the example of like where students are and where we want them to be. And I think something important to think about is a lot of our students aren't going anywhere for a little while. So either they are they're being assessed or there might be a placement difference. We don't know those things, but no matter what, we do know that nowadays things are taking longer. So I think keeping in mind that all these strategies are meant to like over time help you, not hurt you, but help you in the sense that like those kids are probably going to be there for at least 30 to 60 days, no matter what. So kind of thinking how you're going to incorporate these different strategies. Something that's been really hard for me is like trying to figure out what reinforces our set of students nowadays. I think the hard part is that we're competing with a lot of things that they're getting at home or they're able to just take at our schools. So it is really hard to find something that's reinforcing nowadays. Some things I hear a lot that nothing is reinforcing for our students. But I think that no matter what, if we go into like parent interviews, if we go into figuring out like and getting to know our student on a deeper level, there always is something that's reinforcing, even if it's you not being around. So sometimes, we're bugging our kids so much to stop something that when we're not bugging them, it's reinforcing for them to just be. So we can find something, let's be clever. We are all constantly doing something as a means to get something we want. Behaviors are communication or actions that we try to get what we want in the easiest way possible. So if our students learn that the easiest way to get something is just to take it or to run over and get it or to run out of our room instead of doing work, they are going to pick the easiest way to get what they want. And that's what they're going to keep doing. We learn what gets us what we want with the least amount of effort necessary. And so that's what we're kind of seeing with more and more behaviors. Our students are kind of just able to take what they want, do what they want, and then they get what they want easily through their behaviors. And that's why we're seeing more and more behaviors. So we know that a basic is we know that behaviors change in the format of antecedent, behavior, and consequence. Whatever we're doing to manage those antecedent strategies are either leading to the behavior or not to a behavior. And then our consequences are guiding if the behaviors are going to increase or decrease over time. So that consequence piece is also a very important piece to understand. I think something important, and I've said this so many times, if you guys have been to one of our presentations, I probably already talked about this, but it's something so important. Focusing on positive interactions and avoiding the negative interactions. So children really learn what's going to get them, again, the most attention and give them the most power. When you say negatives over and over again, it gives them power and a lot of a negative attention. So we're seeing a lot more of the TK, K, first grade, those younger students who kind of came out of COVID and maybe a different type of parenting, some of those students are really, they're negative attention seeking. So they're looking for that negative attention, and that's what's getting them the most attention is doing the wrong thing. So we're going to try to focus on the positives. When you tell them what to do and show them and give them positive praise, they learn to interact with you in that way and not in the negative way. Words to avoid during behaviors, or even in general, until complete trust is built. And again, I'm not saying you can never say no to a kid. I think that the teachers who have really great rapport with their students and they've had them for a few months and they've developed that trust relationship, they can absolutely say no to a kid and the kid will not do something because they are invested in their relationship with the teacher. But until that point, don't say things like no, don't, I don't like, not okay, unexpected, no thank you. I hear, especially in our classes for kids with autism, that people are saying things to them like, that's unexpected, or, I don't like that, or no thank you. And those things, they really don't work. They actually lead to more behavior. And our students with autism, they don't, just saying that's unexpected to them, most of the time, they're not even understanding that concept or what it means. And again, no thank you. If they're invested in you and they love you and they care about you, then you saying no thank you might have an impact because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But otherwise, saying no thank you will literally just make them have more behaviors. This was a concept that I trialed. These are more words that we should be using. Show me, instead of blank, you can blank. I like how other student is. Can you blank? I see you want blank, can't, you can. And it was funny because I kept working in these classes and hearing these things over and over again. And so I went to my kids and I just was like, hey, if I just tell my 2 and 3 year olds, if I yell at them, no, don't do that, what's going to happen? And I had never done that. I was trying to follow the philosophies I try to teach people, where I'm teaching them in every moment when they're young and they don't know better. But I started yelling no or no thank yous at my kids. And this is what happened.
Lila, don't go up the stairs like that. That's not okay. Lila, don't go up the stairs like that. That's not okay. We don't do that. No, thank you. Lila, no, thank you. Lila, we don't do that. No, thank you. That's not okay. I don't like it when you go up the stairs that way. Lila, I don't like it when you go up the stairs.
Hey, Lauren, is there sound? I just want to make sure there's sound. Okay.
There's a way that's not okay. Lila, can you show me how you go up the stairs holding the rail? Dude, Ellie, can you show me how you do that? Oh my gosh, Ellie is, wow. Oh my gosh, Lila, good job holding the railing. I like how Ellie is holding the railing so nicely. That's how we go up the stairs nicely. Lila, do you think you could show Mama how you go up the stairs nicely? That's right. You could even go up backwards as long as you're holding on. That's perfect. Good job. Oh, I love watching you. Perfect. Good job, baby. That's being very careful. You're right. Good job. Lila, we don't bite that. It's not okay to bite that. We don't put that in our mouths. No, thank you. Lila, no thank you. That's not okay. I'm mad. Lila, we don't do that. That's not okay. No thank you. Lila, you're not going to get to go downstairs later. You're not going to get dinner. It's good. Lila, it's not okay to put that in your mouth. It's dangerous. Really cool, baby. Lila, can you show me? Can you cut this? Can you cut this? Can you put it there? Good. That's right. Can you use the cookie cutter and cut it right here? Can you cut a cookie on here and make this yeah. Good job, baby. That's how we do it. That's right. Can you?
Okay, so you guys understand the concept. The more and more I said no, or I don't like that, it actually like makes me feel like really frustrated, right? Like if I'm telling a kid no and no and I don't like that over and over again, like even my baseline, my ability to stay calm, like I like am just so angry and so frustrated that I even can't stay at my own baseline. So again, I had only done this once with Lila, and she performed perfectly for me, in a sense that like she did what I wanted her to do, or I thought I didn't really know, but she did what most kids do. And I know that she's only 2 or 3 in here, but like I see this done at, with 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, right? And the more and more it's like the kid's like, trying to annoy you and touch your face, and you're like, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you, and the kid just keeps doing it. So even though it's with Lila at this younger age, this applies to any student, any age. Again, try to apply that to whatever age group you're working at. Let's see. Okay, so another quick strategy, a trick that I'm going to teach you. I cannot read this because of all this stuff. Hold on, let's see. Sorry, there's all this stuff in the way. Okay, so avoiding power struggles. As a teacher in your classroom, especially the people who do not have help in their classrooms, I know that following through with behavior stuff is really difficult, right? It's like you have a whole classroom of people to teach. So even though we tell you all these different strategies, I mean, that's all great, but you really don't have the time to follow through with a lot of these things. So here's something that you can do that, again, keeps you at your baseline, but also gets students to follow through. So to avoid power struggles and stay at our own baselines, this method can be used to get students to do small approximations of what you want them to do and then building on it. So you might use it to get a student to give up something they want. So something like, their Chromebook, or, something they brought from home that's a toy, or, something that they have that you want them to, you're not going to just go over and grab it from them, right? But they want that thing and they won't give it up. Or you're going to use it to do part of something you want them to do. And so how is it going to look? You're going to say something like, hey, just put your Chromebook down a second, and then you can pick it back up, right? And usually kids are like, what? Those kids that are trying to get to us, they're like, what? And you're like, yeah, just put your Chromebook down for a second, or just close it for a second, then you can just open it back up and do it. And then you go and you do the rest of your class, right? And then you come over to them again, you say, hey, just close it, and then you can open it back up. Right. And so you're just getting them to follow through with one small little thing at first. And then you're going to say something like, hey, just close it, write your name on the paper, and then you can open it up again. Right. Can you do that? Again, yes, I know that you're really busy, so maybe the answer is no from some of you, but that is so much easier than struggling with them and saying like, you need to do all your work, please close your Chromebook. So you're just getting them to do a little bit, you're keeping them compliant, and you're able to stay at your baseline. So what might something like that look like? I'm going to show you a little bit because I know we're going to run out of time, but here's a student that was, destroying the classroom because he didn't want to give up the iPad. I'm going to tell him to just put the iPad down and pick it back up, and this is what this looks like.
Buzzer's gonna go off, and as long as you put it right here, you can have it back. Okay, put it right here so you can have it back. Okay, go. 5, 4. You need to place it here. 3, 2. Put it. Good. Okay, you can have it back. Get 1 minute. Up in 10 seconds. If you place it on the whiteboard, you can pick it up again. Okay, are you ready? Okay, when you hear it, you need to put it here, and then you can pick it back up. Wow. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pick it back up. Good job, buddy. Yeah. Okay, you can get the iPad. Pick it back up. Good job, buddy. Right, guys. Remember, when you hear the bell, put the iPad down and do the activity, and you can pick it back up. Perfect. Okay, look.
All right, so again, I'm not going to show you the whole video. I think you guys have access to that stuff anyways. But again, just like a quick concept like that, where again, you can say, do this activity, you can pick it back up, or just do a little bit, and then you remove yourself of demands. Like, hey, I know you don't want me to bug you. I need to see you doing some work. How about you just do the first problem, and then I'll check in with you later, or you can go back to putting your head down or whatever. Okay, so that's that concept.
Buzzer's gonna go off.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about environment. I think as a behavior specialist, sometimes when I walk into classrooms, I'm going to look at how it's set up because for some of our students, the environment can either lead to more behaviors, or if you have a student having a lot of behaviors, it can really change that. The way the student is having behaviors if we just change the classroom around a little bit. So, basics, I say for elementary school teachers, always having a quiet or break area in your classroom would be great. Um, is your classroom visually supported? A lot of our students, whether they have autism or another disability, visuals help everybody. So it's great to have your classroom visually supported. Is there clutter? Sometimes I've been in classrooms where there's like books everywhere or stuff everywhere. If we have a student who's more handsy and might be trying to destroy or get power, that gives the student a lot of power because there's a lot of things to like mess with or push down. So really trying to declutter your classroom. And then do the students have access to different learning setups, maybe like standing, sitting, just to move their bodies around, having access to different learning setups. So why is it important to have a physically structured classroom? It creates a meaningful environment that's organized, makes the environment more predictable, limits distractions, and increases ability to focus. It decreases anxiety and stress. I know if I come home or my wife comes home and the house is a little bit more of a mess, then it's like all of us are really stressed. So imagine like a kid with autism or who needs some sort of organized environment, and they're coming into something that's like chaos. Also increases independence. Like we want our students to be set up to be more independent so that we're not always on them, especially with those one-to-one aides who are, like do this, do that, do this. We want them to back up and our students to be more independent and successful on their own. Also, it allows time to prepare, ask questions, and process. A cool down environment might look like this, free of preferred items, don't include, or make sure that you include strategies that promote mindfulness, breathing techniques, some fidgets maybe, that, as long as they're not, too fidgety where they're going to distract others, weighted blankets. Also, this area should be taught from the beginning, like how you're going to use it. Like, hey guys, I have this quiet space in my classroom. Whenever you guys are feeling overwhelmed or like there's too much work that you're, or maybe like you don't know something, you're always allowed to go and take a break in that area. And so you're teaching them proactively that when they're in that area, they're free of demands, they're free of criticism. It's sort of like a free space. And then also like having them, empower them to self-advocate, like, hey, I do need a break, or saying like, hey, it looks like, you're getting frustrated. Do you want to go take a break, or like, let's go to the break area. And then you can like, think about things and come back. So really teaching that before the students see it, like what are the expectations? I already went over that. Again, just some examples of teachers, how they set this up. There's like some bins too with different activities for them to do. And for some of our students who can, read and understand these charts, again, something you want to teach proactively because the student sitting down may not understand what any of those charts mean. So you might want to go over that with your full class, like, hey, we're all going to practice breathing. We're all going to practice like identifying our feelings. But again, something they should be exposed to before you expose them to a break area. So visually supporting your classroom, this is so important. Having access to like a schedule on the board, pictures, words, however you're going to do it, that is so important. Not only does it help our students know what's next, but it also helps our staff. So if I come in and I'm trying to do a behavior consult or speech is coming in and the classroom's gone, I can look at the, class and say, oh, at 11 o'clock, they went here. This is where I need to go. So having a visual schedule, that's up. Also, it's helpful to have students in the classroom have expectations listed in your classroom so the students know what the expectations are. If you can, it's helpful to write out each step for the activity for the students who need the extra support. So if you do have like an aide in your classroom that's assisting another student, maybe that can be their job, that they're writing the steps up, like get your book out, get your paper out, write down, right? But having those extra steps that can help everybody, right? Even me as a supportive staff member coming into your classroom, it helps us all know what that task is and how to break it down. These are some schedules. There's a middle school schedule on your left. There's a elementary schedule on your right. But again, just something with that's supported visually and tells everybody where you are. Individual schedules, some of our students need a bigger breakdown of schedules. And so you might have something that looks like this, where it's like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. All of these are included. Again, I think we have like 9 minutes left, so I'm going to go through it quickly. You have access to this. What an individual schedule might look like, something they can cross off or check, or something that's Velcro that staff can use every day. But some of our students, again, they need to know it's coming. They need it to a different level, or they might have like speech when other students in your classroom don't. So having something that's individualized like this also can help your students. Here's another set of examples. Again, you guys have access to this. And again, the mini schedules, questions we always want our students to know. What do I have to do? How much of it do I have to do? And how do I know when I'm done? A lot of our students with anxiety or autism or other disabilities, they really need to know, like, okay, how long is this thing going to last? And if it's just an open-ended activity, sometimes that's hard for our students who have, disabilities or other behavior issues. This is what a mini schedule might look like. Again, like breaking down each task. So write name, circle, draw, color, read, identify, all done. So something very simple. There's a group 1, go to circle, sit on carpet, say day sentence, guessing, listen to story. And again, these things can be broken down for your staff, especially if you have a staff who can help you in your room. Or like even simple as washing your hands. Here's some more task analysis, visual examples, again, for our students who need that. And then break it down another level. Some of our students with more moderate to severe disabilities, they also do really well with first then. So having a first reading, then tablet time, just again, very simple, not a lot of language. So again, just another example of that. Here's some more first thens. If you have a whiteboard, it's great. You can have, you can do your token economy on there. You can do your first thens on there, but having the access to the whiteboard, you can always use that as your first then. All right, here's Katie for managing conflict.
Okay, so I know that you guys only have a 10-minute break, so I'm going to try to go quick. Again, all of these slides will be in the catalog. There'll be a link for the recording after we're done recording everything, and then also a link for the PowerPoint, and it will be in the catalog. I'm not going to read these to you, but when it talks about conflict, we definitely want to try to avoid a power struggle as much as possible. And remember, we are the adults, and that the kids actually wanting that back and forth and seeking that. And so if there's a way that we can kind of go around it, that's usually for the best. And there are some things that you can consider before, deciding that if this is the hill you're going to try to climb. We do definitely look at stuff that can be ignored. Annoying is not dangerous. It's unfortunately a constitutional right. And so there are some things that we have to just kind of let go and ignore. That does not mean things that are unsafe. It does not mean things that are like extremely disruptive to the classroom. And while it may be like a good first step, if the kid's still doing it 30 minutes later, there are things that we can try to do to hopefully mitigate that. So we talk about a couple of different things. I think it's disengaging, interrupting, and I forget the other title, but the first one is to try to disengage from that conflict, because that is what the student is seeking. They want that back and forth. They want to know that they are getting under your skin. So fake it till you make it, trying to stay outwardly calm and respond in neutral ways, even if you don't feel calm and neutral, is a good way to take that control back. If you need to take a deep breath, respond with brief comments, and just trying to avoid all those baiting remarks that, like, I think kids are getting better at. I don't know if it's like technology or media, but some of the stuff that is coming out the last couple years is really, really kind of just impressive. Interrupting, if there's a conflict that's happening, trying to interrupt it. This usually works better at the beginning stages. Like when a kid's like fully dug their heels in, it's probably not like going to be as successful. But if you know the kid enough that you see it coming, you see it starting, there are some ways that you can interrupt it a little bit earlier, to try to just diffuse the conflict before it starts. So trying to, divert the attention away, ask unrelated questions about things that have happened to them recently that are preferred, like, so I know you went to Legoland, or how was your weekend, or I like your shoes. That's a cool transformer. What's your favorite transformer? Like asking, you know, brief questions, trying to send the student to the office on an errand, like really interrupting, like wherever they're even, if it's a math thing, like math's not important right now. Why don't you go? I need a runner to go get a note. Prompting the student to take a break in that early stage, and then empathize, paraphrase their point of view. Sometimes they're not used to like teachers saying like, "You're right, that is frustrating, and I would be mad too." That can interrupt it in that early stage when if they feel heard. Um, De-escalating was the other one. So sometimes none of those work, and we still have to look at how we can hopefully de-escalate the situation instead of making the situation worse. Usually that means postponing consequences. When it comes to de-escalating, there could be like a 2-hour presentation on that in itself. So I just kind of picked some basic ones that I feel like either don't see in the classroom as consistently, or things that are kind of like quick that we can do. So we are talking about the positive versus negative. Body language is a big thing when it comes to de-escalation that I think people could be more aware of. Again, acknowledging the student's in control. I know that's like hard, but sometimes just saying like, "You're right, I can't make you do that," can really help the student like feel like they do have control, because a lot of the time, a lot of these conflicts are coming from their lack of feeling like they're in control of their lives. A lot of asking sometimes like, "Hey, what do you need?" Using humor depending on the situation and the student, labeling the emotion. I see you're angry. Trying to think of like the communicative function. So like what the problem is, what the student's like need is not being met, trying to do that. The forced choice is kind of a procedure that maybe you've seen us do before. I don't know if we have time to necessarily go over it, but this was originally written to be like a pamphlet that could be followed without us necessarily going over it. And I'll actually, I think, try to find it and put it in our resources as like the more drawn out version. But the thing that I want to highlight is that um, you're telling the student to do whatever they're currently doing. And then for part B, when it says like do part of the activity, you have to like have a reinforcement system or know what the student is motivated by and pair that with what you're asking them to do. So having a reinforcement system is important for that. So we have a resources slide at the end where it has all of the things that we have talked about, some examples of token systems, some, um, reinforcement systems. It has, and it also has this like crisis response plans. I was never planning on talking about this today, but I wanted to show you what's available on the system and in the resources. This came from general education students and principal, or general education teachers and principals asking, "Hey, we have a student that shows up and it's the first day on their campus and they're trying to toss the classroom. What do we do? They're not in special education, and my teachers have never dealt with this before because it's general education environment." So that this would be a good resource for that. And there's a kind of PDF that is kind of made to be like an infographic. And then we also had from that same presentation, people asking how do we get help for students that are in general education, and that's where that infographic comes from. And there's some things that are like linked to in that where it's like references like individual behavior strategies, that's in there. And that's our end. So thank you. I think exactly on time. I forget the name. QR code is the link for the resources. The Google form link is, I guess you'd have to wait until it's in the chat. But if you come back later when you have access to the point, it should still work. Thank you. I know you guys have 10 minutes, so we're going to actually try to clear out the waiting room because we already have people coming in for the next session.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you, Katie and Jenna.
Of course.
So helpful. Thank you.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.